All right, it's 1:01. We'll keep an eye on people still coming in, but since it's a beautiful day outside, we'll start getting this going so we can all enjoy the sunshine at some point. Welcome. Happy Wednesday to you all. March 1st now officially. My name is Allison Van Pelt. I'm a senior planner at the Des Moines area MPO. I'm helping lead the electric vehicle series that we're putting on at our last workshop series session. It came up that emergency response was a big area of concern or interest for folks. And so Z took it upon himself to put together this great slate of speakers for us all today. So before we get started, just a couple things. Obviously, we are in just a regular meeting, so please continue to keep yourself muted. When you entered, you were muted, and Z will be keeping an eye on that part. Also, we're going to hold off questions until the end. You're welcome to put them in the chat if you would like to. If there's a specific question for a specific presenter, please do put their name in there. And of course, we are recording this, and so we'll be putting this up on the MPO website and our YouTube channel as well in the coming days. So let's kick this off. So as electric vehicles become more popular and widely adopted, communities are taking note and exploring how to transition their fleets to electric vehicles. This webinar will feature 3 early adopters of electric vehicles for emergency response in the Midwest. First off, we'll have Assistant Chief from City of Madison, Wisconsin, Scott Bavery. He started serving the community as a Madison firefighter in 1997 and has also held the positions of paramedic, training officer, fire lieutenant, fire captain, and division chief. He's credentialed in the Center for Public Safety Excellence as a chief fire officer and enrolled in the National Fire Academy Executive Fire Officer Program. He's been involved with the Lake Rescue Team, the Hazardous Incident Team, and the Tactical Emergency Medicine Services, and was a former hazmat state coordinator and a lead instructor for MFD recruitment academies. His leadership has been instrumental in multiple programs, including the peer support team, recruitment committee, and mentorship program. And he has established himself a reputation as a transformational leader who's driven by challenge, undeterred by obstacle, and committed to furthering the standards of excellence to promote transparency and influence positive change in his community. So welcome to Assistant Chief Bavery. Also, we're joined by Chief of Police, Rob Burdess, who was appointed to the position of Newton Police Chief in September 2015. His career started at the University of Iowa Police Department in 1997 to 1999, and then was hired on in 1999 as an officer in Newton. He served as a patrol officer, canine officer, detective, lieutenant, and another number of other specialty positions throughout his career, and has recently served as the president of the Iowa Police Chiefs Association and Iowa State Police Association. He's a graduate of the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy, holds an AS in criminal justice, a bachelor's in public administration, and a master's in public administration as well. And he's a graduate of Northwestern University School of Police Staff and Command and the FBI Command course. He's a recipient of International Associations of Chief of Police 40 Under 40 Leadership Award, as well as numerous other awards under his belt. So welcome, Chief Burdess. And last but certainly not least, coming in from the state of Nebraska, we have Clary, who was sworn in as the Bellevue Police Chief on September 1st, 2020. He came to Bellevue with over 26 years of experience with the Iowa State Patrol, and throughout his career at State Patrol, served in a number of roles, including District Commander, Statewide Tactical Commander, Assistant Operations Commander, Professional Standards Bureau, and Accreditation Coordinator. For the last 5 years, he served in his current assignment as Area Commander and Captain, and he's received his Master's in Public Administration and is now a PhD candidate in Criminology and Criminal Justice at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. He also graduated from the FBI Academy and completed International Associations of Chief of Police Leadership and Police Organization Training. He also has served his community as a Special Olympics Torch Run volunteer and also serves as a board chair for the Food Bank of Iowa. He's been awarded the Iowa Governor's Volunteer Award on 2 different occasions for his philanthropic efforts in 2016 and 2014. So as you can hear, we have some accoladed folks with us who have navigated this themselves. And so we'll go ahead and hand it off first to Assistant Chief Bavery to discuss what's going on in Madison. Chief, it's all you.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Looks like I hope everyone can see the slide of the Pierce Volterra in front of our state capitol, which is just a few blocks down the road from my office. I'll talk a little bit, I guess, about just because I was asked to talk a little bit just about the city of Madison and the fire department. So if you want to click to the next slide, just for those of you that haven't came to Madison, love to have you. So if you ever are in the area, please swing by. But we currently see a population of around 270,000 people. Like the picture just showed you, the slide before this, it is the state capital here in the southern central part of the state of Wisconsin. As far as the kind of logistical side of just Madison in general, we are on an isthmus, and our land surrounds 4 lakes, so we're heavily involved with the water and the lakes around the city of Madison. Home to the University of Wisconsin. Go Badger fans if anyone's out there, but the university obviously makes up a huge part of our population when school's in session, which isn't obviously part of that initial population, but our obviously Monday through Friday, and when school's in session, we see quite a lot of activity, especially in Wisconsin as we dive into Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evenings, as you can imagine. About 75 square miles, and typical Midwest weather up here: winter, spring, fall, summer. You know, just like most, we can get really cold. So I know when we start talking about electric vehicles, a lot of the questions I get from people from all over the country is how does it deal with the super cold winters that we can get up here, you know, the 0-degree type of thing. So I'm happy to answer any of those questions, and we get those a lot, especially from our Southern California and folks down south when they call about the Volterra. The vision statement's pretty long and lengthy. It's definitely on our website. I won't dive into a whole bunch of it, but I think it's similar to a lot of them. Our top priority is really maintaining the of what we provide to the city of Madison. We really pride ourselves in being one of the safest places in the country to live, work, and play. Just like, again, we really want to make sure that our environment for our employees is a good place to work, and we want to make sure that they feel safe. We really put a lot of emphasis on our diverse workforce here in the city of Madison, to really mimic what our community looks like. And finally, I promised the last slide about our vision statement, just making sure that our people are well trained, that they're able to really handle small incidents all the way up to the large and jurisdictions at every level. So we definitely pride ourselves in our people as well. Our mission statement, just real quick, is really easy. It's just to basically just to help people. And that's one that it fits nicer on the slide compared to the first 3 slides with our vision statement. But that's really what we're all here about, serving people. So a little bit about our department. We're a full paid fire department. We house about 400 paid line individuals. So local 311, 400 people. We also have some civilian positions as well, maybe 30 to 40 that do some of our trainings and some of our inspections and some of those things, elevators, things. But as far as the fire companies go, we have 14 fire stations across the city of Madison spread out. Every engine and ladder have 4 people on them, which consists of a lieutenant, which is the company officer, one person that drives the vehicle and no pump at fires, they're the engineer or the driver, and then 2 firefighters / EMTs. Each company, and I'll get into that maybe in the next slide. As far as the medical side, it's a huge part of what we do. In fact, I had 70% here. It's probably even a little bit higher than that. It might be 73 to 74% now, of really what the Madison Fire Department does here in the city of Madison. So all of our firefighters, whether or not you're a firefighter, a driver, a lieutenant, they're all at least a basic EMT. And then we also have 9 additional paramedic level ambulances. So there's 2 paramedics on at least every one of our ambulances. We also have the opportunity, depending on staffing, we staff 88 people every day. And some of those paramedics sometimes trickle into the engines and ladders. So we definitely have advanced life support on some of our apparatus, depending on staffing. And here's what it kind of brought us together today, at least from the fire side of it. This is the picture of the Pierce Volterra. This is in firehouse and station number 8, which is on Madison's east side. It's one of our busier firehouses. It averages 10 to 12 calls roughly a day. It doesn't normally have that podium in front of it, but I think that was when it first got delivered, when we had the mayor and the governor come and do the big kickoff. This was put into service back in May of 2021. So it'll be coming up on 2 years that this rig has been going on active 911 calls. So it's the first electric fire engine in North America that's been responding to 911 calls. So we're really proud and happy to be a part of Pierce's experience and getting this truck up and running. So one of the questions that was brought up is what motivated us and the justification of bringing an electric vehicle into the city of Madison, because obviously there's a huge cost to this. We haven't seen that yet because we're this is still like a sorry, I got sirens going outside my door right now if you can hear them. Yeah, the cost and everything's going to be significantly higher when it comes to fire trucks. We're anticipating that the first production model will probably be double the cost. So why are we going this route? And it's really a push from the current mayor's office, our fleet management, and really just kind of team city here is when we relate to city of Madison. And the push is really to become 100% renewable. We had a 50-page report that's gone out. I'm happy to share that with any of you. I believe it's on our website. But anyone that wants it, it's a pretty obviously in-depth report. And back even in 2017, as you can see on the slide, that we became the 25th city to set the goal of achieving that 100% renewable energy and zero net carbon emissions. So really proud to be a part of that, but really focusing on a lot of these 3 main things, right? Recycling, our building, our facilities, just saving the energy there. And then we have a lot of solar projects going on, which I'll talk about a little bit later in the slideshow. This is our brand new station that went up a couple of years ago. It's station number 14. So we have 14 firehouses in the city of Madison. It's the location of our recruit class as well. It houses 1 fire engine and 1 ambulance. So 6 people work out of this fire station every day. It's a larger station because it also facilitates our training division. But I'm proud to say that you can't see the solar panels on this picture. They're in the kind of the back, lower back left-hand corner around that whole flat roof. And this facility is run 100% by solar. There's enough power, even in these gray winter months, that solar is able to accumulate enough energy to run that building 100% right now. So the Volterra, again, the main things that that pop up, right, is the zero emissions, the idea of trying to go electric. And I'll get into the actual Volterra and kind of how it probably changed. It's a little different than some of the other rigs that are out there. Obviously, we wanted the zero emissions for sure, but we didn't want to compromise anything. We wanted to make sure that our men and women that are responding to 911 calls can treat this truck just like they would any other truck. That the people that are receiving our service are at no disadvantage from a truck in a diesel mode. And everything, and Pierce has definitely delivered on that promise. There's some reduced noise as well to the firefighters and working at a scene. So as many of you that are first responders know, that we struggle sometimes with injuries and illnesses because of our profession, and one of them is definitely the noise that we all tend to be around. The full charge, a lot of people ask about the charging capabilities of our truck. If it indeed is fully depleted, which I'm proud to say that after about 20 months now running this vehicle, and again about average of around 12 calls a day that we've never ran out of battery. We have ran it in a diesel mode. I'll mention that when we get further, but if it would be depleted, it takes a little bit under 90 minutes to fully charge it. Most of our calls, we're back and back into the stations. Again, this is a big, heavy rig, but we want to get back into the stations. Typically 15 minutes, we're top back off and ready to go on the next call. Again, there's backup systems in play that if we would run out of battery, our service would not reduce the capabilities. And then the reduced maintenance costs and some of the, not only the cost of it, but also the in and out of service time is definitely a noted advantage of the Pierce Volterra compared to our other fleet. So here's kind of a cool shot that Pierce put together. So this is the insides, right, of the Volterra. Obviously the batteries is pretty clear. It's a bulk of batteries kind of in the backside of where the 4 firefighters would be sitting. There is a diesel engine up front, and that diesel engine was really encouraged, or when we got together with Pierce, we were really part of the design phase. And the time when the fire chief, who retired since this, we really wanted to make sure that this is a life-saving piece of equipment. We wanted to make sure that the Volterra didn't lack the ability to continue to respond on call. So there's a backup diesel engine in place. This is not a hybrid, so that diesel engine, if and when it kicks on, it does not charge the batteries. It's just there literally for backup. The driver does everything the same, just like they would every other fire truck. That's one thing I really love about this fire truck, is that not only does it look the same as a traditional fire truck, but it really acts the same. And that was really important for Madison Fire, to make sure that we can literally bring in a driver tomorrow that's never been on this truck, and within 15 minutes, we can make sure that he or she knows how to operate this vehicle, because it's so similar to our other ones. Some recommendations I get asked a lot about, and I'm sure I'll probably get some questions on, like, what have we learned over the last 20 months? And we've definitely learned a lot. Pierce has learned more from this partnership probably than we have as far as the truck goes. I'm happy to say that I think it's come public now that we've agreed to buy the first electric fire truck in production mode. So the truck that I've shown you pictures of today is just an example of the beginning where the technology has started. The new truck that they've learned from and have implemented and improved on will be a different truck than what we have been operating. I'm really excited to see the improvements, the enhancements, and we worked, like I said, almost 2 years now, and really getting to where we are. So the partnerships are huge. So partnership with not only Pierce, or who you're buying the truck from, the dealership, but it's partnerships with your local, in our case, Madison Gas and Electric is our local power company. They actually donated the charger for us. There's obviously grants and other opportunities to get involved in that. But there's a lot of partnerships that you can gain access to. Reducing the operational cost has been huge for us. One of the things that we are currently doing in all of our fire stations is putting up solar panels. Station 8, where we put the Volterra, unfortunately did not have them. The poles are in place now, so we're just getting ready for a little bit more of some warm weather to finish the install of the solar panels, again, to try to reduce some of those operating costs, and plenty of new technology to help with that as well. Getting buy-in from your members was huge. It's gotten old for our crew members at Station 8. And what I mean by that is, working with the Volterra, it brings a lot of press. A lot of departments from all over the country have come and visited. And that just takes away from their time to kind of stay in their routine. But they did see the benefit of being involved in something like this, because from this whole demo process, it's something that typically you go a whole career without being able to be in front of or being a part of. So it's been really great. And then finally, it's contacting departments that are either currently looking at them or thinking of electric vehicles, but also the ones that have tested them and tried them and get a chance. And it's been great. That's probably one of my favorite things with this whole process, is getting an opportunity to connect with fire department leaders, city managers, mayors, all kinds of wonderful people that have a lot of expertise and a lot of cool things. So we've been able to learn from each other, either whether or not it's the electric version fire trucks or different things that we operate normally in the fire service. So I know we're going to hold on questions later, and I hope I kind of stayed within my time frame. But if we're kind of waiting on questions later, I'm happy to do that, unless you have something in mind different.
No, that's great. I think there's just one question in the chat, so we'll toss it in now, just because this might come up. So Chief McCluskey is wondering, with longer scene times, do you have to take the unit out in the middle of an incident at some points, or does it stay on the scene even with the battery running or running?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We do get asked that a lot. Like, how long does it last? And like I said, we've been running this a couple of years, and we've never had an incident where we ran out of battery. In fact, I'll tell you a real quick story. When we first got the truck, we had it for about 3 weeks, and Pierce called me and said, Chief, you guys aren't running that diesel motor at all. And I kind of jokingly laughed, like, isn't that the purpose, right? And his response was, well, Cummins wanted to test and support that diesel engine, so we need to run it. So they had us run it for literally 2 weeks straight. Maybe it was 10 days straight. So we have the ability to switch it over to diesel motor if we want to, and then it literally works just like our other trucks do now. We only did that for that training period, or that testing period, and then we moved it right back into the battery operated mode. However, if the battery would ever totally decline, where it's no longer able to keep up, it will automatically switch over to diesel mode. No button that our operators have to push. So then it'll facilitate just like our other vehicles. So if we're at a scene for a long extended amount of time, just like we do now, we have a few options. We're blessed here because we have 14 firehouses, 88 people on duty. We can move rigs in and out at those long scenes. Otherwise, we have to bring in another vehicle to pump in diesel fuel at a scene if they're literally locked into a scene where they can't physically move in and out, which does not happen very often. That's definitely an option for us here, even with the Volterra, because of that backup diesel motor.
Yeah, interesting. That's great. Thanks so much for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Excellent. We're going to move back to Iowa now and look at a motorcycle with the Newton Police Department. Chief Burdess, it's all you.
Hey, good afternoon. Appreciate the opportunity to speak today. So just a little bit of background on how we got here, and then I'll talk about Newton here a little bit. But first off, we were looking for a way to re-engage our community and get back to a different type of policing model, community policing model. Through the 90s and the mid 2000s, we had a very robust bicycle program where we had officers on bikes driving around the community. And so we were looking for something like that to re-engage. So just an overview of the community, we're about 15,750 population. We're just east of the Des Moines metro area on Interstate 80. Our industry here is wind industry. So the towers and wind blades that you see driving down the interstate, creating electricity, those are made here. And of course, former Fortune 500 Whirlpool and Maytag was originated in Newton. So we've got a lot of parks, 300 acres of parks, and those need patrolled, and that'll come in a little bit later. Hike and bike trails, about 8 miles of those. Our crime rate's very comparable to like-sized communities, and at the time that we were looking at this program, our property crime was above average for our type of, or our size of community. Next slide there. So when we looked at bicycles, we were looking at, all right, do we start a new bicycle unit? And we looked at really the limitations of that, of just your traditional bicycle. So then we moved on to electric bicycles and also noticed some limitations there. So the idea was sprung to maybe look at motorcycles. And we had some officers interested. They have personal motorcycles. They always thought it'd be cool to drive those type of units on patrol for work purposes. Most of them grew up watching Chips. If you're from that area, you understand what that is. And so we moved on to motorcycles and started assessing the benefits of those and what options were out there. So there's some traditional units out there, the Harley Davidsons, the Victorys, and the BMWs. Most of you probably have seen those out on the streets. But there was a unit out there that was electric, which the brand name is Zero, and they're out of California. And they're making motorcycles specific for law enforcement purposes. And they have two different units. They've got one that's a dual purpose, like the one that we have pictured in that slide there. It's both on pavement or on road and off road capabilities. And then they've got an off road capable unit also that they typically sell to sheriff's offices and state agencies that work a lot of deserts and woodland areas. So the advantages that we were kind of looking at, motorcycles in general, they allow for greater access to various areas in our community. I mentioned our parks and our bike paths. Those were areas we couldn't get to necessarily in your traditional police vehicle. Officers more approachable, so there's not they can't roll the window up. They can't hide behind the door. You're kind of out there in the open. So if you're sitting in a park, you're much more approachable by the community, and definitely less threatening, less noticeable than a patrol car when you look at the tactical side of it. And the motor officer gets to use all his senses. So eyes, ears, smell, all of that. When you're in a patrol car, you may not hear the same things as the motor officer hears as they're driving around. And then lower maintenance costs on a motorcycle unit. It was another thing that we looked at. So next slide. So these stats that you're going to see here are based on 2017 pricing. We wish our gas prices were $2.50 a gallon right now. I know they're approaching that again, but these are 2017 pricing. So when we looked at the cost, we broke down, the Zero motorcycle, which is the electric unit, the BMW, the Harley, the Victory, and then we use Ford SUVs as our patrol units. We broke down the cost of each one of those and what it costs for miles per gallon or kilowatts per gallon and what that would look like long term. So the zeros on the left column, that was going to be 12 kilowatts per mile. The price per gallon or price per kilowatt was 12 cents at that time. So realistically, our cost per mile was going to be about a penny for that electric motorcycle. And as you go across the board there, when you look at BMW, Harley Davidson, Victory, and Ford, your cost per mile changes drastically as you move up in the size of motorcycle or size of unit. The BMW is a little bit larger than the Zero. The Harley Davidson and Victory, of course, are the full-size 800-pound motorcycles, and of course the SUV is a full-size vehicle. Annual maintenance costs, we laid that out. The electric motorcycle doesn't really have much in terms of maintenance that's required. Just brakes is realistically what it needs annually, whereas the other units need oil changes and things of that nature. We looked at the 1-year operating costs, and the average motorcycle unit across the country was in operation about 5,000 miles per year. And of course, we're in Iowa, so we're limited to realistically May through September because of the weather. But we based it on that 5,000 miles. The electric motorcycle for the operating cost was about $350 a year. And when you move across that board, it obviously increases. And then the cost of the vehicle, these numbers are obviously changed from 2017, but at the time, it was actually the least expensive unit of all of the ones we looked at. So a lot of things made sense when we were looking at electric versus gas, especially when we're looking at the cost. So at that time, we were also a Alliant Energy Hometown Rewards community. That was a 2-year community energy reduction program that we had a full-time staff member for the city that was working on that. And so we were encouraged to apply for Alliant Energy's Bright Ideas Grant. And realistically, they were looking for innovative ways to reduce energy costs and kind of think outside the box. So we were awarded that grant by Alliant Energy. They funded the entire cost of the motorcycle as well as the training for the officers. And the training for the officers is 80 hours of training. They had to go to Texas to do that. And pretty impressive training that they were subjected to in order to drive this unit safely. So, and Newton is currently an energy community. As I mentioned, we have that connection to renewable energy with our wind blade factory and our wind tower factory and our biofuels. So when we got the Zero electric motorcycle, just some of the performance advantages that we saw, maintenance-free powertrain. So again, it's a belt and brakes is really realistically the only thing that can go wrong with these. The power pack is supposed to last 300,000 miles. We are not even close to that at this point, and we are, 6 years in, and so we've got a lot of life left on this vehicle. Top speed is 102 miles per hour. I am hopeful that it's never reached that speed, but the officers have been involved in some very short pursuits with it, and responded to emergency calls. A maximum range is 176 miles, so our officers work 10-hour shifts, and we have never had the battery to a point where it's even showing it needs a recharge or in the yellow, which would be a warning. And we've had it in operation during special events like Iowa Speedway events and Ragbri, and never had any issues in terms of the battery life going low. The brakes do regenerate the battery, so the more we ride the brakes a little bit, the more that battery recharges. And this unit does have that off-road capabilities, so we can drive in the back side of our parks and along the bike trails that we can't access in a normal patrol vehicle. Tactical advantages, and we've seen some very good things come out of this. It's silent. That can be a double-edged sword in one way, in that silent's good when we're trying to catch bad guys. But as you know, motorcycles are not the most noticeable vehicle on the road. And so our officers driving these have to be very cautious and perceptive to make sure they are driving defensively so that another motorist doesn't pull out in front of them. The Harleys and the bigger motorcycles have the loud exhaust and they're more noticeable. These are lightweight. They're about 400 pounds versus your standard bike would be in the 600 to 900 range in weight. You can ride it indoors and outdoors, so there's no concerns of exhaust. So we have had it in some other cities showing it off inside of convention centers, and we can just drive in there and have no issues there. So, and we do have the advantage of surprise. So, and I'll touch on that on the next slide or two. So during our grant period, we were required to report on our successes with the bike. And so it was deployed in April through October of 2017. We ran it about 40 hours per month. We had 2 officers that had been trained to ride this and use it for patrol purposes. As you can see, we were patrolling all over the community. They responded to 180 calls for service, conducted 84 traffic stops and 60 field interviews. And your field interviews are those stops that you have with citizens that may be on foot or on bike. And so that was a huge issue or benefit to us at the time, because we had a lot of folks overnight that were committing crimes and committing burglaries and transporting narcotics on bikes and on foot. And so these field interviews were able to intervene on some of those cases and do some interdiction. So those community events, we were involved in a lot of those. We did reduce our crime in parks. We did have an upswing before we had this bike. And so we spent a lot of time in our city parks. And we were able to apprehend a lot of burglary suspects during this time period, just simply because this unit is quiet. We also found some huge benefit of this unit during the fireworks that Iowa state legislators passed a few years ago with Iowa fireworks being legalized. We were able to sneak up on folks shooting them off and able to provide some citations for them for that behavior. So pretty neat little unit for that purpose. Our energy savings, we added about 1,700 miles in that 6-month period. About $200 in savings and fuel cost. Obviously, this is a small snapshot of the entire 6 years that this unit's been used. But when we're looking at is this a benefit or not, we can show there is some savings in the fuel cost. And then the emission reduction of 2,500 pounds. These are obviously figures that I didn't do. There are some obviously experts in the electrical field that helped us work out these numbers, but 2,500 pounds is equivalent to 115 gallons of gas, 2.5 barrels of crude oil, 1,117 pounds of burned coal, and then replacing incandescent light bulbs with LEDs. So definitely some energy and CO2 emission savings there, and then of course the reduction in cost. So with that, appreciate again your time, and I'll catch any questions that you guys might have at the end.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much. I can just imagine you guys sneaking up on people shooting off fireworks now. I wonder how many tickets are out there. We can get into that later on. Anyways, moving on, we're going to Nebraska next, to the city of Bellevue with Chief Ken Clary. Chief, do let us know if you have any technical issues, and it's all yours.
Sounds good. Says I cannot start my share until the other participants are, okay, here we go. We'll try it again now. All right. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, a little bit of background on the Bellevue Police Department, or Bellevue as a whole. As you probably know, we are a suburb of Omaha. We're the largest suburb of Omaha. A lot of people say Omaha Council Bluffs. You should actually be saying Omaha Bellevue. We just there, but we're 65,000 population, just slightly bigger than Council Bluffs. We cover about 16 square miles. We're home of Offutt Air Force Base, Stratcom, which is the second most important Air Force base in the United States tactically. As far as a department, we're 111 sworn at capacity today, 130 total personnel. We cover about 46,000 calls for service annually. Our fleet is made up of approximately 90 police vehicles. About 60 of those are Ford Explorer hybrids. We made a move to hybrid vehicles over the last 5-6 years, and effectively reduced our fuel consumption dramatically with that. And seeing the EV push nationally, and all of the tests with Tesla, etc., we see this coming. So we thought we would get ahead of the curve and try to test out the Mach E, which was the newest American-made electrical vehicle at the time. We actually had a vehicle totaled. We'd been looking at the Tesla testing, which was not very favorable when it came to law enforcement response vehicles, emergency response vehicles, primarily due to limited capacity as far as size, overall size, as well as the fact that it has primarily glass roof, so you can't attach emergency equipment to it. A number of issues, but Ford Mach E was larger in capacity. It does have a metal roof, so you can attach emergency equipment, as you can see in the picture there. Our top lights mounted. Anyway, we did have a vehicle. One of our hybrid Explorers was totaled in a crash. At the time, we weren't able to purchase another hybrid. They had actually canceled 2,000 orders nationally, but they were still taking orders for the Mach E at the time. They closed them just a couple days later, so we were able to get this one in and able to take delivery of it around mid-August. So our testing period on this is fairly short, but our learning curve is straight up. I will tell you about lessons that we have learned today to date, and talk about costs. Price difference on this vehicle, marked fully equipped, was about $8,000 over our hybrid SUVs. However, not a lot of trepidation there, because the testing with the Teslas, we reached out to several agencies that tested those at length. Their cost savings was between $6,000 and $8,000 a year for an electric vehicle versus the same petrol vehicle in a gas powered vehicle. So we look to be able to recoup the initial cost of the vehicle fairly quickly in a 12-hour shift usage. We did have to install a level 2 charger as well. So I'm going to get into the charging units a little bit more later, but the level 2 charging station is the fastest AC charging station. There is a difference between AC and DC. I will get into that briefly, but the cost of that charging station was about $3,900, just a little bit more. And then the installation of that was another $5,100. So just under $9,000 for the charging station itself. As far as range, Chief just talked about the range of the motorcycles. I think luckily he doesn't have to run those vehicles in those 6 months of cold weather. And I'll get into that, but Ford advertises the range of the Mach-E between 224 and 312 miles. That is with 100% battery life, which you aren't supposed to charge it to 100%. So you're generally in the low 90% to start with, which cuts into it. But then you're also not supposed to run the battery below 30% because that can damage the battery over an extended period by running it under that. So we're looking at a battery between 30% and 90%. So we're looking at a range that's effectively around 150 to 160 miles in normal driving weather. That's good for us because in a 12-hour shift, we average about 150 miles covering our city, covering those 46,000 calls for service. So the problem comes in where we get into some extremely cold weather, as you will in Madison or Des Moines or Omaha. So we had a couple days where we were at or below zero. On those days, when we started out with a full charge, our effective range was 60 miles, which meant when we took it out within 2 hours of beginning a 12-hour shift, we were forced to come back in, put the vehicle on the charger. That charging station that I talked about, a level 2 charger from 20 to 30% to a full charge is about 6 hours. So it becomes problematic, basically takes that unit out of service in extremely cold weather. You could state, well, then get faster chargers. I'll touch briefly on the charger issue. If you're not familiar with electric vehicles, all of the American or the US grid is on AC power, which is an alternating current. They take that alternating current in the charging station and push it into the vehicle. It is then changing that alternating current into a direct current, which is how the battery stores that energy. You can purchase a DC charger, which is called a fast charger. It is the fastest charger available. The problem with the DC charger is instead of $3,900, it's about $25,000. Also, the infrastructure for that type of energy is not typical. Our facility is large. It's fairly up to date. We've been in this facility for about 7 years. Our facility would not support putting a DC charger in because an AC charger attaches to a normal 220 outlet, that type of a system, whereas a DC charger is going to be a 440. Not many of your electrical grids within a building will support that. The other issue is the DC chargers, although it's going directly into the battery, it doesn't have to be changed. It will immediately begin to degrade the battery when you do that. The recommendations of the EV manufacturers is not to charge them on fast chargers as a habit. It's for emergency uses only. You're supposed to, whenever possible, charge them with the slower chargers. There are a couple car companies that have had major battery degradation from continued use of the DC charger or the fast charger. So one last thing that, and I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer because this is majority of the time, 40 degrees to 80 degrees, that vehicle has a good battery life. It's something that we can use. I'm just stating this for anyone who might be considering a full EV fleet for policing and you happen to be in the upper Midwest. It doesn't seem feasible for us at this time. The other thing, we're looking at testing a couple of other types of electric vehicles, and for each manufacturer of an electrical vehicle right now, they each have their own type of charger. So as you, or not charger, but cord. So as we bring on a Dodge or we bring on, you name the vehicle, they're going to have their own charging adapter, which becomes problematic at our charging station to have number of, hopefully the federal government will come in and mandate that one charging cord is used for all of these at some point. But just another factor to consider when you're thinking about an electric vehicle. But again, a lot of very positive press, as both of my cohorts discussed. There are a lot of benefits to it. The chief mentioned tactically at night, vehicle break-ins, those types of things, patrolling for the anomalies where noise becomes an issue, because it is a noiseless vehicle other than the gravel being crushed underneath the tires. Very, very smooth ride, high performance. Michigan State Patrol tests all patrol vehicles on the market annually. The Mach E tested above all gas-powered vehicles as far as performance, speed, top end, and 0 to 60s, and 80 to 100. A lot of benefits. Just the cold weather and the 6 hours of charging on an AC charger, the level 2 charger, are the two issues that you would have to get around when considering that to build a fleet around. For our investigators, it would be great. It will be great. We will probably be pushing that particular vehicle to our investigators who aren't out and about for an entire 12-hour shift. They can just charge it intermittently as needed. So I would love to entertain any questions you might have.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much. So we have a couple of questions for each of you, as well as a couple general ones. Folks, if you have any more questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat and I'll add them to a little roundabout here. But Chief Clary, let's start with you. So when you were thinking about outfitting the Mustang vehicles, were you able to do it with all the necessary cages and transport seats and room for consoles and associated hardwares, computers, gun racks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
That's a great question. Being a brand new vehicle, there was nothing stock. They're actually currently producing those things, the cage and the console. We had difficulty. Our city builds out our police vehicles for us. They were not comfortable building this one out, and we didn't want to pressure them into learning all the nuances. So we actually shipped this one out. We utilized a company here in Omaha. They actually sent it to their mothership in Kansas City because it's the first one in the Midwest that had been built out. So they brought in all their technicians to the Kansas City office and learned together on the build out. So it is fully capable. It has the console, the way it's set up, very similar to all of our hybrid vehicles. The only thing it does not have at this time is a cage. We did not have one built for it because we weren't sure where it would end up in our fleet. If we do keep it on patrol, we will have one built for. Actually, by the time we would make that decision, they'll probably have one rolled out. I know they were working on it.
Awesome. Great to consider. And one more for you. Considering all the electronics on the car, mobile data, in-car cameras, being warm and cool, obviously, how has that impacted the battery life, and especially on 12-hour shifts?
Yeah, all of the equipment actually works off of a backup battery. You can actually leave your top lights on, your computer on, all of these things going, and it's not going to drain the primary battery. They say, we've never tested this obviously, but they say you could actually leave those going for a week and it wouldn't drain that backup battery. So it's just primarily moving that 2,000-pound vehicle up and down the street. That's the drag on that battery. And like the chief said, you know, in town, you're going to get better range out of it because when you do brake, it does add charge back to the battery, but it's somewhat limited. You know, if we have a decent summer into the fall, I look forward to continued testing. I'd be glad to get back to you about how it responds. But early on in the fall, it was, you know, 180, 200 miles was not uncommon range for that.
Great to hear. Excellent. All right, rotating around the group, Chief Bavery, as they understand the engine is electric, backed up by diesel. So how often does a diesel kick on in a call? Thinking, of course, in the winters or the need to run a recirculation and tank heaters.
Yeah, so the Voltaire is so different than a lot of what we're hearing from the police side of it, and we definitely have the ability, right? The advantage, I guess, when it comes to EV compared to my police friends here, that we're in and out of the station a lot, where police, right, jump into their car and they're out in their car squad for 12 hours, and so a little bit of different strategic planning there with trying to charge while they're working, I imagine. Ours is out on a call. We pride ourselves, right, and as an ISO rating of 1, department is 1, which is the highest rating you can get. So that really ties into response times. So we pride ourselves in being able to respond to most of our calls under 5 minutes. So from the station, getting out to the scene, 5 minutes, that rig sits there, just like what we heard from the police chiefs is then that battery reduction drops way down, right? It's not pulling battery. The rig will actually kind of stop. It'll shut off, just like our other rigs now. Even our diesel motors will do that now too, with the idle reduction technology in our diesel motors. They shut down, but there's still a battery that charges, like the lights and the computers and all that thing. So the Voltaire is not a hybrid. Again, it's got a diesel backup, but it literally, the difference, right, is it doesn't go back and forth. It stays battery 100% of the time until the battery dies. And in our case, right now we have it set up for, and we have the ability to switch it, and we haven't done it. But when we first we were in the design process with Pearson and had our input on it, we were really worried about the technology with the batteries. So right now we currently have it, as soon as our driver puts it into pump gear, we're actually going to pump at a fire, it switches over automatically. There's no extra buttons or scenarios that the driver has to do, but it switches over into that diesel mode. Portland's about to get the next electric Volterra, and they're going to do it all on battery. Excuse me. So they're going to pump off their battery as well, as my understanding. And we're just waiting to see how that goes, and then we're going to probably flip our switch. But when we get the new one, when we do that, we're going to pump off that battery as well, knowing that eventually, if that battery dies out and stops, that the diesel motor will kick in. Again, it won't charge the battery, but you'll be driving back to the firehouse then in diesel mode, and then when you plug it in and can get the charge. The Volterra currently doesn't charge the battery with braking. It's different than the SUVs, and the police chiefs had mentioned that as an advantage, right, for the SUVs and the car. So I hope that answered the question, but currently it does not switch back and forth at all unless it totally runs out of battery, which again, to date, it has never done that on an EMN, on a 911 response. And we probably have gone about 2,500 roughly 911 responses with the Pierce Volterra since we've had it in the service.
Great, thanks so much. Chief Burdess, we have one for you. How many officers are on patrol at one time? And their thought is being that one electric bike on patrol, with how many officers and patrol cars going around as well?
Yeah, good question. Obviously, there is some limitations on, prisoner transport with these. And our shift minimums in terms of how many officers are working at a specific time varies throughout the day. But we kind of looked at it as if we were one officer above shift minimum, then the bike could be deployed. If we were 2 officers above shift minimum, the bike would be deployed, and we would team that bike up with another squad, and they would do like a special traffic enforcement project. The motorcycles are very good at the traffic enforcement because they are, something that can be semi discreet, and they can see people not wearing seat belts. They can be in a position where they can see people texting and driving, and so there are opportunities there to do that. But yeah, the limitations on transporting prisoners is there, so we do make sure that we have ample staffing when we do that. These units are great in terms of the amount of equipment they can carry, not just the personnel, but although we can't haul prisoners with the saddlebags that's on there, the officers can have almost as much equipment in those saddlebags as they do in the back of their patrol car. They're not going to have a full-size fire extinguisher, but they got a smaller one. They've got a lot of the same equipment that the patrol vehicles have.
The purse carrier, we can carry many things in small bags. So no, I
Absolutely.
understand that. This actually rolls into one for you as well as everybody else. And one of the questions is, have any of your departments looked at electric bicycles? Or do you have bike units that you might incorporate something like this into as well?
I can start with that. As I mentioned, we had a robust one in the 90s and early 2000s. And so when we started looking at this program, we did reach out to a number of other agencies that had zero motorcycles. And a lot of those were university police departments. And they saw a lot of benefit in actually having a bike unit and a motorcycle unit. They really worked well together. As I mentioned, there's places that a motorcycle can go that a car can't go, and vice versa. When you're talking about a bicycle versus a motorcycle. And so really what it came down to for us is the amount of equipment you could carry on a motorcycle, the range, and the visibility. There's more lights and warning items on this motorcycle than there would be on a bicycle. And so when we looked at officer safety and for the purpose that we were going to use it for, that's why we really leaned towards the motorcycle. And the cost difference, for a electric bicycle to be outfitted with everything we needed was going to be around $5,000, where this electric motorcycle was just short of 20,000. So those are kind of some considerations that we took into account.
Excellent. Anyone else on electric bikes?
I'll just add to that too, and you probably typically don't think of the fire service with bicycles, but just like the police departments were tasked nowadays with so many special events. So working farmers markets, parades, concerts, football games, all the marathons. The marathons are a great place. So we've been in the process. We use like some electric four-wheeler type of small little we call it the GEM, but we're also looking at e-bikes as well for that. We don't have nearly as much equipment, and we don't put lights on them and things like that, but just to work those special events. We're looking at electric jet skis also now for the for the Ironmans and those type of events. Not only just in and out with the electricity side of things, but also instead of putting our boats with motors and as you can imagine, like a working prop when you're around swimmers, right? So looking at those options too. So there's definitely a lot of options and opportunities, even in the fire service when it comes to some of the smaller ways to get around.
Yeah, that's a great take. Thank you. Chief Bavery, we just have a couple more. Have you looked into electric ambulances for your fleet?
We have. So I've been in the city of Madison department here for 26 years, and I never thought in a million years I'd be talking to anyone about an electric fire engine. I figured squad cars and obviously chief's cars and things like that we're working on here in the city. But yeah, we're talking about electric buses here in the city. We have electric buses now. We have electric garbage truck that I see go up and down the road. Not garbage truck, cement mixer. So some amazing ways to move big, heavy equipment. And I'm shocked. And I've been telling we work with Demir's ambulance service right now, and that's who we go to. And we've told them up front for the last 3 or 4, maybe even 5 years now, if they don't come up with one, and another company does, we're going to be going that route, because you would think it'd be easier just on the smaller platform. They're definitely working on one. Demir's has showed us prototypes of ones. They were supposed to have one down at FDIC last year that wasn't quite ready to roll out yet, but it's coming. And we talked a little bit about partnerships and obviously a little bit more similar to PD a little bit. Those ambulances in the city, at least here, are driving a lot more miles and a little bit definitely more road time than our fire engines and ladder trucks. So partnerships with that, we're really kind of lean heavy on the hospitals to have infrastructure built out into these hospitals, that when you drop a patient off and you're inside dropping that patient off, even if it's 15 minutes or 20 minutes because you got to write a report, you can plug that rig in, hopefully. So we're really hopeful that some of these other again, partners, will dive into this and help us reduce some of our costs, so we continue to provide the care and the service that we want here in the city, just like every other city that we're talking about here today. So it's definitely on the future. It's definitely coming.
Right. And just to clarify one thing, just thinking about the current Volterra that you have right now. So when you switch to pump, then the diesel comes off, you switch pump off, then it goes back to electric, and the Portland one, the pump would actually run on electric as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And we have the ability to make that switch now where we could pump all electric. The fire chief at the time, when we designed this with Pierce, we were just really concerned about the capabilities, because we didn't know what the technology could or couldn't do. And to be honest with you, I'm ready to switch it now, but we're at this point in the game. We're gonna hold off and let someone else kind of lead the way. But yeah, right now, currently, as soon as, just like we do any of our trucks, they have to come to a complete stop. They put the truck in pump gear, so they actually pump the water, and that's the same exact scenario they would do with the Volterra. They would have to put it into pump gear, and as soon as it does that, it automatically switches over into diesel mode. As soon as they take it out of pump gear, they're done pumping at the fire. It automatically goes right back into EV mode, and they continue throughout their day. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's great. That's all the questions from the chat. Just the planner question in me, this last one for you as well, Chief Bavery, is were you or the department or any of the emergency service departments involved in the 100% renewable Madison planning development or planning process? Or were you guys just said, hey, we want to reduce your emissions afterward?
No, yeah, we're really on board here in the city, and I don't think there's really an agency that's not involved with it. We definitely pride ourselves. Just, I think, like you just can't do it all by yourself. It's such a big thing when you talk about, and even the little things make a difference. We're really trying hard to utilize the concept of Team City. Something the mayor's really, I think, gotten buy-in from all our agencies, and it's always fighting for money, right? A lot of times with a lot of this stuff, and it seems like the city is willing to help when it comes to sustainability and reduce some of these operating costs, and hopefully make the environment a better place. So there's definitely been some good funding and backing. So I don't want to say it's been easy, but some of the things have been easy. I think one of the police chiefs mentioned like LED light bulbs, like even that, changing that stuff throughout the fire stations, and motion sensors, and even like solar lights or skylights in the firehouse, like so the crews don't have to turn the lights on all the time. And it's all those little things really do add up. And sometimes I think we get caught up into these big purchases. The Volterra is going to be probably one of the most expensive vehicles that a fire department has to buy, whether or not it's the Volterra or a different manufacturer. So that's a difficult thing for a lot of departments to come up and be able to afford. But there's a lot of things. Gosh, we still mow our own lawns, and I'll never buy a gas engine anymore. We're buying battery operated lawnmowers for the firehouses. And years ago we switched to hydraulic tools, the jaws of life type of concepts. They're all run by batteries now. And I'll tell you, when we first made that change, firefighters aren't all that accustomed to want change, and now they would never ever dream of going back to the old school generator models of the cutter. So really fun times to be in responders in general. I think this is just tip of the iceberg, talking about EV vehicles and all that, but there's a lot of really cool stuff that police and fire are doing to make things better, not only for the people that are working, right, for the noise reduction and some of the health benefits. I mean, I remember when I first started, we used to have to wash the walls of the apparatus bays because it was so filthy and dirty, and you did that, but you didn't think about all the fumes that were going up to the upstairs when you were sleeping. Those days are gone, and so not only the health and wellness of our people, but also the health and wellness of the people that we serve. So it's fun times.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. That's all the questions from the chat. If anybody would like to unmute themselves real quick, Otherwise, we can wrap this up and give you back some of your sunny afternoon, although I don't know the temperature in Madison right now. However, thank you to all of you. We appreciate your sharing your stories, and we look forward to checking in later on, seeing how it's going, and maybe having some stories of our own to share. Thank you to Capital Crossroads, of course, our Clean Cities partners. Z, my partner at the MPO, he's back there somewhere. Thanks for putting this together. And thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it and hope you have a great rest of your day.